attacks were aimed not just at law enforcement, but at American culture and society itself. The most basic duty of government is to preserve law and order, and this administration embraces that sacred responsibility.
I'm struck by the fact that the president has not at any point said the most important thing here is to protect the First Amendment rights of peaceful protesters. So I'm wondering, where in his hierarchy of interests does he place that? Is the First Amendment protection the most important? Is stopping violence most important? Why is he not out saying all peaceful protesters will be protected?
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
Okay, let's play a quick game of putting the comments from Trump's chief propagandist, Karoline Leavitt, not over the footage of Los Angeles, but over January 6th. You know, seeing as they're so for law and order and all.
These attacks were aimed not just at law enforcement, but at American culture and society itself. The most basic duty of government is to preserve law and order, and this administration embraces that sacred responsibility. Rioters burned American flags, chanted "Death to ICE," and spray-painted anti-American slogans on buildings.
Today, Trump sent out his master of deflection to do everything possible to hide his utterly abysmal ratings in the new Quinnipiac poll behind the smoke and mirrors of endless lies and disinformation. And she kicked things off by weighing in on the alleged conversation that Trump had with Gavin Newsom on Monday. Well, according to Trump.
When is the last time you spoke with Governor Newsom?
A day ago. Called him up to tell him, got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job.
Only she seemed to throw her fearless cult leader under the bus when she referred to them talking last Friday.
If the president does end up deploying any National Guard members, perhaps Marines, to blue states, would he be in contact with the governors prior to this? Would it be necessary?
Well, President Trump was in contact with Governor Gavin Newsom despite some of the claims he's made in the last couple of days. The president called the governor on Friday evening and told him to let law enforcement in California do their jobs.
Which goes against the claim that Trump made, saying he spoke to Newsom on Monday, going to the length of sending screenshots of this alleged call log to John Roberts on Fox News, which he aired live. The only problem is that call log showed calls on Saturday.
Between Gavin Newsom and President Trump. Gavin Newsom, after President Trump said in the noon hour in the Oval Office that he called him yesterday or the other day, Gavin Newsom tweeted the following. He said, quote, "There was no call. Not even a voicemail. Americans should be alarmed that a president deploying Marines on our streets doesn't even know who he's talking to." Well, President Trump contacted me from Air Force One on his way to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where he'll be in just a little while. He said the first call to Gavin Newsom was not picked up. The second call Gavin picked up. We spoke for 16 minutes. I told him to essentially, quote, this is quoting the president, "get his ass in gear and stop the riots, which were out of control more than anything else. This shows what a liar he is. Said I never called." So here is the evidence. And here is the call log that the president sent me from his phone. This was June the 7th. Now, granted, this was on Saturday.
Which Newsom pointed out. This is the man sending Marines out into Los Angeles and doesn't even know what day it is.
The additional 2,000 National Guard men and women that President Trump now is redeploying are being taken away. It's the 79th Infantry. These are I know these folks well. You know these folks well. These are the folks, these are the National Guard men and women that have been out there protecting you here in Southern California during the fires, after the fires. We are now taking many of them off assignments on forest management, protecting communities, vulnerable communities against summer and wildfire season. We're removing them from task forces that we've created to deal with fentanyl interdiction. I have 394 National Guard men and women down at the border. I imagine they may even be pulled for this theatrical display.
And she faced more pushback from reporters who were on hand to do her job for her.
Caroline, two questions for you. Sure. Over the weekend, Secretary Noem sent a memo to the Pentagon asking Secretary Maxwell to have and direct the military that's on the ground in LA to arrest and detain what she said were lawbreakers. Is the president okay with that? And under what authority would the members of the military be able to arrest people inside the United States?
I can't speak for a letter that came from the Department of Homeland Security. I can't can't speak for the president and what's currently happening on the ground now. And as you know, the president federalized the National Guard under U.S. Code 10, which he has the authority to do. And our United States Marines and the National Guardsmen and women who are on the ground right now are helping to create a peaceful environment for ICE and Border Patrol, who were being, again, hailed with rocks, who were being violently and viciously attacked. They needed reinforcements, and so our United States Marines who are on the ground are providing those reinforcements to ensure the environment is peaceful so that these raids and deportations can continue.
But he realizes they can't actually arrest people unless he invokes the Insurrection Act, which, I mean, seemingly was not something that was in Secretary Noem's memo, a clear distinction she did not make there.
Again, you're trying to conflate a letter that was sent to the Department of Homeland Security to the president's legal authority. The president understands the legal authority that he invoked, and that's the current situation right now.
It seemingly didn't sit well with the woman taken to the podium with a cross on her chest, saying this to a reporter who dared to ask a question.
If there were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade, President Trump would allow that.
Of course the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question. Raquel.
It's as if they're just trying to mimic the childish and gross rhetoric of their fearless cult leader. But the thing is, it's actually far from a stupid question. It's an important one, considering the fact that the president just yesterday said that protesters, he didn't specify in which way they would protest, he just said anyone protesting his military parade would be met with force.
Celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protester wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, you know, this is people that hate our country. But they will be met with very heavy force.
The thing is, she's doing this because it's what she's sent out to do, to redirect the conversation from the abysmal job this administration is doing. Take, for instance, the recent Quinnipiac poll that has Trump's approval 54% disapprove, 38% approve. His big, beautiful bill, well, 53% oppose it, 27% support it. And handling of immigration, the very thing that he's claiming he's enforcing as he mobilizes Marines to the streets of Los Angeles, 54% disapprove, while 43% approve. The reason is the danger he's putting people in as he goes about enacting this policy.
The most important story of our time is this one. What is this country going to allow him to do? This is an attempted authoritarian overthrow of the United States Constitution and the U.S. government, the attempted imposition of a dictatorial regime. That is clear. That is unambiguous. I think it is unquestioned. I think there are very few people on any side of American politics who would contend with that. The question is whether it will work. And the way we will find out whether or not it's going to work is not going to be something that happens in the White House. It's going to be something that happens in the streets and in the courts and in the states and in Congress and in every other place that people are trying to say no. The strength of the movement against him is what will determine our fate as a country. And what we are seeing over and over again in what I believe is the most important story in the country, what we are seeing over and over again is that protesting against him works. That he wants to seem strong, but he is not that strong. Organizing against him works. Fighting him in court works. Pushing back works. Protesting in the streets works.
For instance, stories like this out of LA that he wants buried behind the smoke and mirrors of the tear gas filled streets. How federal agents in plain clothes and unmarked cars tried to apprehend first graders from an LA elementary school. They told staff that they had, quote, parental consent.
After an unusual and disturbing visit, several federal agents from the Department of Homeland Security showed up at 2 elementary schools this week demanding to talk to students. What happened next has Superintendent Alberto Carvalho praising school workers and demanding answers.
What interest should a Homeland Security agent have in a first grader?
On Monday, multiple Homeland Security agents showed up at 2 elementary schools in Los Angeles, according to LAUSD Superintendent Alberto Carvalho. These agents were stopped, questioned, and turned away by principals at Lillian Elementary and Russell Elementary Schools, both in the Florence Graham neighborhood.
They wanted access to the students to determine their well-being, based on, according to the agents, the fact that when they entered this country, they entered as unaccompanied minors. It is well known that these students are under the care of relatives.
According to Carvalho, the agents claimed they were not part of immigration and customs enforcement.
they convey to both principals that the parents or the legal guardians in charge of these children have provided them authorization for access to these kids in school. That is absolutely, blatantly untrue.
So Trump voters, I ask you point blank, is this the mandate that you voted for? Apprehending people at work, at schools? Because more of this is coming.
And NBC News reports tonight that tactical units from ICE, like the ones we've seen this week in LA, have been told to be ready to deploy to 5 other cities run by Democratic leaders. 2 sources familiar with the matter tell NBC News that special response teams, as they're called, teams that use heavy Bearcat-tracked vehicles, long guns, tactical vests, have been ordered to deploy in the following cities: Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, the D.C. area, and New York City. And what we are thinking of right now as an LA issue, and what we're talking about as an LA issue or a California issue, is very much quickly becoming a national issue. And remember the order Trump used to send the National Guard into Los Angeles? Doesn't mention California even once. It's a nationwide order. So Trump pretending these largely peaceful protests weren't troops in the streets of LA matters. I mean, because these protests in no way warrant sending in the National Guard. But legally, importantly, to federalize the National Guard, for the president, any president, to order the National Guard into a state without that state's governor's approval, there needs to be either an invasion, a rebellion, or a belief that the president is unable to execute the laws of the United States.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.